square shoulder guitar for that very reason.
Going to take a step even back in time now, 1937. All the guitars were small. We had just introduced what we called the jumbo, the dreadnoughts, but still there wasn't anything, a big guitar out there. There was this cowboy singer named Ray Whitley, who was at that time as famous as Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, all those guys. And he was famous. He performed at Grand Ole Opry, performed all over the country. And he came to Gibson with a problem. He says, you know, he goes, we have one microphone on the stage. I've got background singers. I've got a full band. No one can hear my guitar. I need a big guitar. So Gibson dug around, and at that point in time, they were making big arch tops in Nashville. And so they took one of the arch top molds, which is 17 inches, and created the J-200 for Ray Whitley. And he just loved the guitar. And the story goes that he said, you know, those guys always dressed up fancy outfits. He said, and I want it to be flashy. I want it to be as flashy as my jacket, so to speak. And that's what the quote is anyway. And so Gibson introduced the J-200. It was the biggest guitar ever made to that point. And it's still just known as kind of our mainstay, probably the most visual, along with the Hummingbird, of course. But when you see this, you know it's a Gibson. You know it's a J-200. And started off as kind of a country guitar, but the rockers just loved it. Through the 60s and 70s, Pete Townsend, George Harrison, Bob Dylan, they've all used J-200s because you can just, the thing about a guitar this big, and especially one that's made out of maple, which is very dense, with a guitar like a 45 or any other standard size acoustic guitar, you hit it so hard they just kind of start compressing. They'll only get so loud because they can only push so much air. But the thing about this guitar, the harder you hit it, the louder it goes, and it really doesn't break up. It doesn't change. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't compress, so to speak. And that's why country guys and rockers just love this guitar, because you can just beat the crap out of it and it'll bite you right back. And it's a wonderful thing. We've made a lot of variations of the 200s over the years. They have some custom shop pieces in there, including a Western Classic, which is pretty close to the original Ray Whitley, without as much ornamentation as his had. But if you want to play one that's a really nice representation of the very original J-200, there's one hanging in the wall in there. Beautiful guitar. J-200s, of course, also, this is the modern version of the guitar with a pickup system, with the pick guard that won't wear off, with the Grover tuners. And we do variations of this. Right now we're doing the Bob Dylan signature model, which is kind of a throwback with the Godel-type tuners and the hand-painted pick guards. Just a quick note, we did a run of guitars for Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan has never done a signature model guitar ever for anybody. Very difficult to work with, to say the least. He's a little quirky. And it took us almost 10 years to get this done, to get the contract signed, he wanted to design the guitars. The only reason that we even got it done was because we had one of our entertainment relations people that lived across the street from his personal manager and was good friends. Martin worked with him for almost a decade and walked away because he just was impossible, and he still is. But the funny thing is we made 175 signed ones, and those sold out in a day and a half, and they had a street price of 10 grand. And they're just beautiful guitars. So the crazy thing is, we sent Bob 175 labels to sign for the inside of the guitar. And he signed 175 labels in pencil and sent them back to us. So it was just, we looked at that and went, oh, geez. So we spray sealed them. We weren't going to go back to the well and say, can you redo these in pen? But so we sealed them and shipped them out. And did you have any of those here, Keith? Did you ever get one? Not the signed ones. And but what we are also making for the person that's a Dylan fan that wants a guitar he can actually play, we make what's called the Player's Edition. It's not quite as ornate. It's more like a vintage J-200 than a showpiece, so to speak. And that's kind of the vintage version of the 200 that we're doing right now with an Adirondack top and vintage tuners and such. But the Dylan project, it was quite an adventure. We learned a lot from that. But the J-200, again, just a fantastic guitar, works great, and just something that's very unique. And if you've never played one, you got to give yourself the opportunity. It is a big guitar. It's not for everybody. I get a lot of people say, playing sitting down, and even I'm not a big guy, but it's a sound you can only get out of a big guitar. If you want that sound, that's just the only way to get it. It's right here.